Hi Amy, I wanted to share some tips with you in terms of how to set up your workspace when you're transcribing. Alright, so the first thing that I usually do is set up my audio player. So I'm actually using something called Pratt, which is used for acoustic analysis. You can use any program that you have. A Windows Media Player would work fine. So you don't necessarily have to use this one. Okay. The next thing that you do is you open up your Crimson editor. I also like to have the macros handy on the side, and also to have these things to cut and paste. Okay, so let's get started here. Every time you open up Crimson editor, you'll have to specify the syntax type that you're working with. So if you notice here, we have plain text that is automatically selected. So in our case, we're working with ICE Simple, which is a modification of the ICE code or ICE markup as you would have read. Okay, so we select that. Okay, then the next thing we'd want to do is to set up our word wrap and also spell check. Okay, so we're pretty much ready to go. So let's, I forgot to say this. Okay, so when you start, you should always type the name of the file that you're working with. Okay, so in my email, I explained the coding system that I use. So here we have Digger Martin, male Indo-Trinidadian, he's subject number 2, and we're transcribing this sociolinguistic interview. Some other information I like to include, seeing that the sociolinguistic interview occurs between me and the subject, I like to specify the people who are involved in the interaction. So here I would put interviewer, and I would set that as G. All right, and here we have subject, and his name is Kevin, so we just say K. Okay, so now let's look at our file here.
Okay,
so for the record, what's your name? Okay.
okay.
Okay, so for the record, what's your name?
Cap.
Okay, so we're gonna type G text unit. So for the record, what's your name? And then, what's your name?
Kevin Mohammed.
Okay, he says, I know a different set of macros because I use a different system, so I'm just trying to learn it here. Kevin, whoops, Mohammed. Okay, and how long have you been? Okay, and how long have you? And how long? Okay. Okay, and how long have you been living in Digger Martin? Okay, now here I'm asking a question. Notice that I'm not going to put a question mark, okay? Like I mentioned in the manual, in transcription markup, we don't use traditional punctuation marks, all right? Also notice here that I don't have a space between the text markup unit and the beginning of the text, because here the checker will count that as an entire word. All right. I think we have Crimson editor here set up so it can show you spaces, so it's always a good idea to transcribe with that, because it's always, I find it very difficult to go back into the text now after you've already transcribed and to clean it up and look for the spaces and whatnot. So I just find it much easier to, you know, transcribe it and have it clean from the get-go.
My whole life.
Your whole life.
Okay. One note about orthography, which I didn't mention in the manual, even though he says my whole life, we would not transcribe it MEH or anything that's non-standard. We don't use non-standard spelling. All right. So even if he says something in the dialect or in the Creole, you would use traditional standard English orthography to represent that. Okay, let's continue.
How old are you?
24.
Whoops.
If you don't mind me asking, how old are you? If you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
24.
If you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
And if you don't mind me asking, your whole life. Okay, let's go back here.
Asking, how old are you?
My whole life.
Your whole life. If you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
24.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not really good at typing. I make a lot of mistakes. Anyway, okay, so we see here he said, I say your whole life, and whoops, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you? Here we have the start of a new text unit. I guess I could have transcribed it with a pause instead, but you know, it's a new. If you think about it, you might, if you were writing a sentence, start a new sentence. So a text unit is roughly equivalent to what we would call in written language a sentence. All right.
24.
Okay, so there it's kind of hard to hear what I'm saying. Oftentimes in these cases, I just worked with a lavalier mic and I had it pinned on to the subject. So I was not actually mic'd up during these interviews. So oftentimes you might find that you can't hear what I'm saying or what I'm saying is not particularly clear. And that's just simply because of my where I am in relation to the mic. If you can't understand what I'm saying, don't stress yourself out too much. From the manual, you would realize that we have ways of dealing with things that are unclear. You can code for that. You can also code when you're uncertain of what it is I'm saying. So let's say I'm saying lard and lad and you can't figure out what it is. You can just put both and you just put it in the unsure transcription markup. All right, so don't worry too much about that if I am unclear, because I really and truly am more interested in transcribing the speech of the subjects themselves. Okay, so let's listen to this again.
24.
Okay, so he says, okay, insert text strip 24, and then I see, Control T, 24.
24. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good.